Hello and welcome to the Wormhole Podcast, episode 10. I'm Charlie Place, and joining me today is a debut author of an absolutely excellent gothic, fairy-inspired thriller called You Let Me In, which is out tomorrow, Thursday the 5th of March. After I read it, I thought I have to have her on the show. Welcome, Camilla Bruce.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Camilla, obviously you are a debut novelist. Can you tell us about your background and any prior writing experience?
I have been writing all my life, but this is the first novel that is published. I think I've been one of those people who have had this passion in them forever and finally got a chance to do something real about it. And that's my novel, You Let Me In. That's my first foray into the publishing world.
And you say you've been writing all your life. Have you written anything non-fiction or anything like that before the novel?
I've mostly written fiction, and I started writing in English. As you can probably hear, I am Norwegian. I am not English is not my first language, but I started writing in English when I became a mom very early, and I had to spend a lot of time at home with my son. And then I joined a lot of writing groups online. I was about 20 then, so that's a while ago. And since then, I have been active in various groups, and I have also run a very small publishing house called Belladonna Publishing with a friend. And we published a couple of anthologies some years ago. So that was also a sort of writing experience, but from the other side when I could try my hand as an editor.
So are these anthologies available online?
Yes, they are. The two of them. We only made the two, and then we went. My own writing sort of took over, and we had to press pause on it.
So you say you're in Norway. What authors do you admire? Do you admire any other Norwegian writers?
Actually, I have to admit that because I write in English, I mostly read in English. So I'm not really up to date with Norwegian literature at the moment. I wish I was. I know there's a lot of great literature coming from Norway, but I haven't kept up with it, to be perfectly honest. Right now, I'm reading a lot of Gothic novels, contemporary Gothic novels. I think there's a lot of great stuff coming out, like Laura Purcell and Katrina Ward and Alison Littlewood. So I have been reading a lot of these new Gothic stories lately, and I love them. Through history, I think I do have a big soft spot for Shirley Jackson, and she will always be like a guiding star for me with her mixture of horror and the uneasy domestic in her work. I think that's really great.
Well, obviously we haven't yet introduced your book fully. So You Let Me In, your book, which is out tomorrow, we have a reading from chapter 10 for you listeners, and the reason it's actually chapter 10 is because it's going to give you a very good introduction to the book. Camilla, go for it.
Some girls take on a crystalline quality as they near puberty, caught in that in-between place between child and adult. It's the same quality that so entices the humbards of this world. We don't belong to our bodies or skins. We either float somewhere high above or are lost in a passion we don't know. A stranger shown up on our doorstep, seducing us with fiery steps and unknown possibilities. We would like to dance that dance. We are terrified of it. We are little lambs and wicked lions. We don't know what to do with ourselves. For me, the disconnection from my family had never been more acute. I hated my mother. I hated the children at school. I hated the inability to understand me. I was growing a sense of self that hadn't been there before. I think I still hated Olivia a little too, even if I had tried to save her. What had she done that I had not to deserve it all, to be so blessed? We grew up in the same house, in the shadow of the same woods, but only I was haunted. It is hard for a little girl to grasp that fate can be cruel and unpredictable like that. Olivia danced and played in pretty dresses. I bled beneath my Pepperman at night. Sisters, but not really. She held the sun in her chubby little hand. I was left with the moon, ever-changing, sometimes black. Why me? I asked Pepperman sometimes. Why me? Why not Olivia? He looked up at me with bloody lips. You were here first, and I've grown used to the taste of you now. You let me in, and here I am, forever yours, until They struck me, those words, I let him in. They haunted me for years. How could I possibly have let him in? I couldn't recall ever having done anything like that. Was it because I was wrong? Was that what allowed him to slip inside? And if I told you to leave, I asked, what would you do then? You would never do that. Pepperman gifted me a sharp-toothed smile. What would you be then but an angry little girl? It's too late for you now to be like your sister. Because I let you in. Because you let me in. And without you, I'd be all alone. Who else would stand by your side? He was right, of course. My Pepperman. Without a secret, I was no one. Just an awkward girl who everyone feared, even my own sister. He was my best friend, Pepperman. The one and only I could count on. In those dark and painful nights, I felt loved.
Yeah, I love that bit. I think it's brilliant because it tells you not only why the book is titled You Let Me In, but it also does give you a very, very good introduction to the content. For everyone listening, this book starts with Cassandra Tipp. She is a best-selling novelist of romance, and she's disappeared. She has left for her niece and nephew a letter in the form of a manuscript, and they've got to read it in order to find out what they can do to get their inheritance. So it's absolutely fantastic, I've said, and it is an excellent gothic thriller. So Camilla, what inspired this book?
Actually, when I'm asked what inspired it, I always blame my cats, because the whole novel came about because of their habit of bringing greenery into the house. They kept dragging things like leaves and sticks and flowers inside. And I found it all over the place. I was picking up constantly. And then one day I thought, what if I didn't have cats? What other possible reason could it be for all this stuff on my floors? And the answer I came up with was faeries. So that's actually the starting point for the whole novel. That's what got me thinking, and the idea sort of transpired from that. So yes, it was my cats.
That's incredible. I mean, I thought maybe you'd say, oh, you know, I don't know, I live in the woods, or I've read an article, but your cats, that is very surprising, and that's quite amazing. I kind of want to know what you're going to write next, you know. But we shouldn't talk about that because we've got this new book out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. There's a lot to be, you know, I know when I started the book, I wanted to be at the end already, because there are a couple of possibilities for what has happened in Cassie's life. There's a lot to be said for psychological problems, or the actual reality of a fairy world, which we have heard in the reading, or trauma from abuse. And a massive part of the book is the reader's own thoughts. And I mean, to let you know, readers, I'm still considering it now, almost 2 months later. You know, this book does make you think. So the idea that it's cats, I think, is absolutely amazing. So wondering what they might bring next then to inspire your next novel.
Yeah.
Do you live in the woods at all, or have you lived in the woods?
Yes, I have. I grew up in the woods. I grew up in an old forest, started with Iron Age burial mounds. So it's actually an environment I'm pretty familiar with.
I mean, talking of the woods and the house, I sensed a sort of specialness to Cassie's lilac house, which is where she's living as an adult. And then I know, going on your blog, I saw your post about houses. Are houses important to you in fiction in general?
Yes, they are. They are definitely important. I sort of think of the house or the home is like an extension of the character. And it's always important to me to write a house that fits the character and the other way around. And I think that's very gothic too. You have all these gothic mansions and everything, and it's like a capsule where you have all the things that goes on in the character's life are capsuled inside the house. Yeah, that house was special.
So I got the feeling, with the lack of specifics in your book, you know, we haven't got a city mentioned or a country. But in the final copy of the book, the place that Cassie's talking about is S, I think you said, Camilla. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not a very specific place. And also the story's kind of timeless. I think there weren't like mobile phones or anything. What was the idea behind this like lack of distinct location?
Part of that is a practical problem, because I'm sitting in Norway and I'm writing for an international audience. And I thought the easiest thing here is just to not be specific. And also I think it worked with the novel because it sort of became a point that it could have happened anywhere, anytime. So I just decided to keep it that way.
No, that's cool. The twisted fairy aspect, we've heard about the Pepperman and Cassie in your reading. Did you draw on any folklore to tell your story?
Yes, I actually have always been interested in folklore, so I have read a lot over the years. So I can't give you a specific book or a specific article I have read that inspired it, but it's more like I have picked up a lot over the years that became this fairy world that I'm using in the novel. And what I can say is that it's all drawn from old fairy stories, the really old one, where there were still things to be feared and not on Disney Channel.
If we're going to say Disney, we're talking the darker aspects of the Little Mermaid here, not the nice,
nice one.
Revelations. No.
No.
So, should we have the second reading?
Yeah. This is from the beginning of the book. It's one of the first chapters. It's Cassie reflecting on her relationship with her late husband. I have sometimes been asked why I remained in S after the trial, after the man you knew as Tommy T died. It would have been so easy then to slip away and move somewhere else, to a town or a city where people didn't know me. A clean slate was what Dr. Martin prescribed. A fresh start. Of course, I didn't particularly like staying in S. All the eyes staring when I walked down the street or bought ground beef and carrots at the grocery store. My name had been on everyone's lips for months, my face gracing the front pages. If they didn't know me before, they certainly did by then. But I had reasons, as you come to understand. And things weren't quite as they seemed. Tommy T was not what you thought he was. I know you liked him. He was always good to you children. I remember him taking Janus fishing and spinning with Penelope on the lawn. You picked him flowers once, do you remember, Penelope? Those daisies and bluebells you gave him? Even your mother warmed to him eventually. Told me how happy she was that I had finally found an ounce of happiness, that I was settling down, even with Tommy Tip. They were mystified, I think, Olivia and her friends, and mother too, as to why Tommy Tip chose me. He was dashingly handsome in a dangerous way, with a shock of blonde hair and very blue eyes, body lean and skin tanned. He was the man all the women in S dreamed of at night while lying in their husbands' arms. He was at the center of that guilty sweet lust they could not curb, no matter how respectable, how well-adjusted and successful they were. Tommy Tip could ignite a fire in virgins and widows alike. Married women were his speciality. They cost him very little, both in effort and in risk. Before he met me, he made a business of it, sleeping around for gifts and favors. He was a champion of secret daytime trysts. Every one of the women thinking herself the only one. We all knew he had been to prison, of course, that his past was littered with battery and theft. S is a small town. But who doesn't love a redeemed villain, an angel with the alluring taint of sin? I never was so blind, though, never wanted him for being dangerous. I already had a dangerous lover, already knew the taste of sin. No wonder the ladies were cross, though, when his gorgeous body was found in the woods. But I'm moving too fast, we're not there yet. A lot of things happened before that.
So you've got this Cassie's husband, Tommy Tip, who is no longer in the picture. He's dead, long dead, it seems. And we have the Pepperman, who Cassie relates as always being in her life, and he's still in her life. But no one sees the Pepperman because, as far as everyone is concerned, he is effectively a fairy story. And Cassie has psychological problems as far as everybody is concerned. So was there a starting point? Obviously, also, we've got this potential for abuse, why Cassie is talking about these fairies. There is a possibility there that she is using the fairies as a coping method.
Yeah.
Was there a starting point for this whole sort of dynamic where you've got this potential for abuse and her relationship with Tommy and the Pepperman?
Yeah, I think that was sort of, that part of the story came very early on and became sort of what the whole story evolved around for a very long time. I have always had this idea about this man-made, this husband-made from twigs and leaves and things from the forest floor. It has always been like an image I carried with me, and which I'm really happy that I finally got to use for something, to put it in a story. So I knew earlier that was something I wanted to do in this novel. And I also wanted to, with the whole, this idea that there wasn't supposed to be any clear answers in this novel, because I really love that sort of novels myself. I really like the ones when you go away and you're not really sure what you read or what that was and what happened with that twist, and where the novel itself is like a mystery. I wanted to do that in You Let Me In. And I also wanted to make it a intimate story about things that are difficult. And one of the things I was working with was this idea that sometimes the people closest to you, your partner, can feel like a stranger, or they change, and maybe they aren't who they said they were. So it's actually more of a literal way of showing that, I think. It could be, but it could also be the fairies, so we don't know.
So did you have a plan at all going through, or did you kind of just work page by page?
That's something else that I also have been asked before about this. How did I build up this story with all these twists and turns, and everybody assumes that I had this really tight outline to make this all fit. But I actually didn't. I wrote the first draft over 6 weeks. It was extremely intense. And I didn't have a plan. I just took it page by page. And I was extremely surprised to go back later to see just how well things had stacked up, because I had no idea when I was done.
Wow. I have to say, listeners, if you could see my face now, I'm just a picture of, I'm flabbergasted, because I thought that Camilla had a very tight plot and an idea of where she was going, because this book is so well written. And this is a very interesting recording for me, because I'm absolutely shocked. Your story is so tight. It does look like it's been plotted. It looks like you've thought about every single thing for a long time. And now I'm wondering if maybe book clubs need to invite you to discuss the novel and everyone figures it out together. No, that is incredible. On this kind of note that we're talking about, what did you want your readers to take away at the end of the book?
First and foremost, I want it to be, I hope that it is an unusual reading experience. I want my readers to not have read this 1,000 times before. It is challenging, and it's not the easiest book, because a lot of people, they really want to have a neatly wrapped truth with them when they leave a book. They want to know what happened. They want to have everything resolved, and they want it to be. And this is not that kind of book. It's more a book that's a little bit challenging, and it's a little bit unusual. And I hope that my readers will feel that as well when they're done, that they have read something that they don't read every day, and that they will remember it for a while. And I also hope that it maybe can raise a few questions about things like truth and reality, and also a bit about strange girls and their lives.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I did read it 2 months ago, and I am still thinking about it. I know I came away thinking, that this is, given that there are many different interpretations, readers, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that I personally came away thinking, my goodness, that was a really incredibly written book about childhood abuse and the effects of it. I love the way that you have this manuscript, this long letter, supposedly, I suppose, because it's read in Cassie's voice, but it's supposedly being read by her niece and nephew. And she writes about what they might be thinking as they read. So it's an interesting device that kind of pulls you into thinking, about these characters, but for all we know, they may never read the letter. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask you, how important was it to only give Cassie's voice and viewpoint?
I think it was very important, actually, because as you say, they may not read it, and everything may also be a lie. I wanted her to not be challenged in the text, other than what she wanted to give away, because obviously she's being accused of all sorts of things throughout, but I wanted her to be the editor. If you look at it as a fairy story, or if you look at it as someone who is losing their mind, both the strategies are actually about survival in different ways, either by aligning yourself with other forces to find a friend who isn't there, or by letting your mind go as a survival mechanism. And that's actually what's important, I think, with the doctor's book, Dr. Martin's book. that he points this out, that this could all be a way of surviving. And when I started out, I really didn't want to write another book about abuse, not in that way. I did want to write about ways to survive as a human being after abuse, if that abuse is otherworldly or if it is someone in your close environment. And so the survival aspect was really important to me when I wrote it.
No, that's very interesting to hear. Looking at the book from, my takeaway about what it was about, but looking at that book from that angle, Cassie has a sister, Olivia, and she seems she could possibly be the favourite child effectively in the novel. She might be, she might not be. Again, it's up to everybody's own conclusion. But in that context, do you think that there's hope for her to come to a better understanding of everything?
No, I don't think Olivia would take the faerie part of this kindly. She was always really annoyed about this. And then there's also this other manuscript in the novel, which is the book that her psychiatrist wrote, which basically outed her family as abusers, which sort of presents another version of the truth, which is that all the faeries are just in Cassie's head. And Olivia had a very strong reaction to that book, so I don't think Cassie's manuscript would have made any difference to her. I think she's sort of set in her ways. That she's like the mom, that it's really important to just keep the facade and don't let anyone see what lurks underneath.
And you mentioned this book that the psychiatrist has written. Was this idea of this book, including the book in the book, I suppose we could say, was this an idea that came about whilst you were writing the book? As you started writing, you needed another sort of truth in it?
Yeah, it was. That was something that just came while I was working on it. And since this was sort of an intuitive process, I didn't really know what was supposed to be in it either when it showed up. But it did, and I used it, and it worked, so yeah.
No, it's very good, and it makes you think. In your mind, do you have a definite idea of what happened to Cassie?
I actually don't. I'm just as mystified as everyone else. I don't know. I have no idea. And that was part of the fun of writing it for me. That every time I had written something, on the next page, I could just ruin my whole narrative myself, and went like that. It was like I don't know exactly how to describe it. It was just like I had fun building up and tearing down, actually.
A totally not completely unrelated question, but do you believe in fairies?
That's a very difficult question to answer.
I think it's very appropriate though. So.
Yeah. I wouldn't dare not to believe.
Good answer.
Very fairy.
Obviously, we don't want to look too far forward in the future because, this book is out tomorrow and it's also out in the US. I think it's the 21st of April. I will put the pre-purchase links in the description. Do you have any rough plans for another book?
I am working on another novel, speculative novel, but that's a little bit early to talk about, really, because
yes, definitely.
But I write in different genres, like with You Let Me, and I do have a problem picking genres. I sort of switch between, You Let Me In is part thriller, part horror, part fantasy, and a little bit of romance in there as well. So I do have a problem picking genres. So I write in different genres as well. So my next novel will actually be a historical one. With no fairies. And it's incredibly dark. It's my murder book. And it's about Valganes, who was a Norwegian American serial killer who came from the same part of Norway as I do. And it will be out in January next year.
Fantastic. So You Let Me In is in UK stores from tomorrow. That is Thursday, the 5th of March, and it's published by Bantam Press. Purchase links are in the episode description, and this includes pre-order links for the United States as well. If you have enjoyed our discussion, do subscribe for future episodes. Camilla, it has been a great pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for being here, and I hope the book does well. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Join me on Monday the 23rd of March, when I will be talking to Laura Pearson, author of Missing Pieces, Nobody's Wife, and I Wanted You to Know. The Wormhole Podcast Episode 10 was recorded on the 17th of February and published on the 4th of March 2020. Music and production by Charlie Place.